Most people believe financial growth is about income, earn more, save more, invest more, and if growth stalls, the assumption is simple. I need to make more money. But income is not the limiting factor for most people. Emotional capacity is, because financial growth does not just increase numbers, it increases pressure, visibility, responsibility, uncertainty, decision weight, and if your emotional capacity doesn't grow alongside your income, progress becomes unstable. This is why so many people earn more and still feel stressed, why higher income doesn't guarantee peace, why some people sabotage growth right after achieving it. The problem is not money, it's mismatch. Let's start with a reality that most financial advice ignores. Money amplifies what already exists. If you had calm, money expands calm. If you had anxiety, money gives it more surface area. If you had avoidance, money makes avoidance more expensive. Money does not create emotional patterns, it reveals them. Now let's talk about capacity. Emotional capacity is your ability to hold stress without panic, to make decisions without urgency, to experience uncertainty without overreacting, to sit with responsibility without collapsing. Most people are never taught to build this. They're taught to chase outcomes, but outcomes arrive faster than capacity can adapt. And when that happens, growth feels unsafe. Now let's talk about the first place this shows up: decision making. As income grows, decisions multiply. At low levels, choices are limited. At higher levels, options expand. More options feel empowering in theory. In reality, they create cognitive load. Each decision carries imagined regret. Each choice closes other paths. Each option requires evaluation. Without emotional capacity, people respond in one of two ways. They freeze, or they over-control. Both stall growth. Now let's talk about pressure. As income rises, so do expectations from others, from yourself. You expect better performance, better outcomes, fewer mistakes. Mistakes that once felt small now feel defining. This pressure narrows thinking. It creates fear of loss, fear of being exposed, fear of falling back, and fear shrinks capacity. Now let's talk about identity lag. Your identity updates slower than your bank balance, so even as income rises, you may still feel like someone trying to get there. This creates internal conflict. You're living a life your nervous system hasn't caught up to yet. That mismatch is exhausting. Now let's talk about emotional regulation. Financial growth requires tolerance for delayed gratification, ambiguity, and boredom. Markets fluctuate. Income varies. Plans evolve. Without emotional regulation, people react to noise. They panic sell. They overspend during highs. They abandon systems during lows, not because they don't know better, because capacity was exceeded. Now, let's talk about social dynamics. Money changes relationships, not always outwardly, but internally. You may feel pressure to help, pressure to explain, pressure to hide success, pressure to justify boundaries. Navigating this requires emotional maturity. Without it, people shrink to avoid discomfort. Now let's talk about fear of loss again. As your baseline rises, loss feels more threatening. This makes people conservative in unhealthy ways. They stop investing in themselves. They avoid growth opportunities. They cling to safety beyond what's necessary. This is not wisdom. It's fear masquerading as caution. Now let's talk about why people don't talk about emotional capacity. Because it's invisible. Income is visible. Net worth is visible. Success is visible. Capacity isn't. So people chase visible metrics while ignoring invisible constraints, and invisible constraints eventually win. Now let's talk about what building capacity actually looks like. It's not motivation. It's not confidence. It's exposure. Gradual exposure to responsibility. Gradual exposure to visibility. Gradual exposure to uncertainty. Capacity grows through repetition, not force. Now let's talk about systems again. Systems increase capacity by reducing load. Automation reduces decisions. Rules reduce negotiation. Simplicity reduces cognitive strain. Systems don't just manage money, they protect emotional bandwidth. Now let's talk about boundaries. Boundaries protect capacity. Boundaries with spending. Boundaries with helping others. Boundaries with lifestyle inflation. Boundaries with time and attention. Without boundaries, income growth drains capacity instead of expanding it. Now let's talk about pacing. Fast growth without capacity feels destabilizing. Slow growth with capacity feels secure. This is why people who grow slowly often feel calmer. Their nervous system adapts. Now let's talk about the illusion of readiness. You don't feel ready before capacity grows. You feel ready after exposure. Waiting to feel ready delays growth indefinitely. Now let's talk about emotional honesty. Acknowledging that growth feels heavy doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you're aware. Awareness prevents burnout. Denial creates it. Now let's talk about integration. Financial growth must be integrated emotionally. That means allowing time, allowing discomfort, allowing recalibration. Integration is not failure, it's digestion. Now let's talk about the final truth. Financial growth is not about earning more. It's about becoming someone who can hold more. More responsibility, more uncertainty, more choice, more freedom. Income without capacity creates stress. Capacity without income creates fragility. The goal is alignment. When income and emotional capacity grow together, money feels lighter. Not because there's less responsibility, but because you can carry it. That's the difference between people who look rich and people who feel stable. And stability is the real upgrade. Not the number, not the lifestyle, not the status, but the ability to move through financial life without panic, pressure, or collapse. That's what emotional capacity buys you. And it's the one asset that compounds even faster than money. There's one more dimension of emotional capacity that rarely gets named: tolerance for ambiguity. Financial growth lives inside uncertainty. Markets move without explanation. Opportunities arrive without guarantees. Outcomes unfold slowly and unevenly. People with low emotional capacity experience ambiguity as threat. They need certainty. They need reassurance. They need quick feedback. And when they don't get it, anxiety fills the gap. Anxiety pushes action. Action taken under anxiety is rarely strategic. This is why people overtrade, overreact, overadjust, overcorrect. They mistake movement for control. Emotional capacity allows stillness. Stillness allows clarity. Now let's talk about delayed validation. Financial growth rarely rewards you immediately. Effort happens now. Feedback comes later, sometimes much later. Without emotional capacity, delayed validation feels like failure. People start questioning themselves, questioning the system, questioning the plan, so they change direction too early. Capacity allows patience without self-doubt. Now let's talk about boredom again, but from a different angle. Boredom is emotionally threatening to people who rely on stimulation to feel progress. Growth phases are boring. Maintenance phases are boring. Compounding phases are boring. Boredom feels like stagnation if you don't understand it. People with low capacity chase stimulation to feel alive. People with high capacity tolerate boredom and let systems work. This is one of the biggest separators in long-term outcomes. Now let's talk about emotional independence. As money grows, people often expect it to bring emotional relief. They expect safety, confidence, validation, but money can't carry emotional weight for you. If you ask money to regulate your emotions, it becomes unstable. Emotional independence means money stops being the emotional center. Capacity allows you to experience financial ups and downs without identity collapse. Now let's talk about comparison. Higher income increases exposure to comparison. New peer groups, new reference points, new standards. Comparison inflates expectations and shrinks satisfaction. Emotional capacity allows you to notice comparison without obeying it. Without capacity, comparison drives unnecessary upgrades and stress. Now let's talk about internal pacing. People with capacity don't rush outcomes. They understand that forcing growth creates fragility. They pace investments, they pace lifestyle changes, they pace commitments, they leave room for integration. Now let's talk about the quiet confidence that comes from capacity. It's not loud, it's not performative. It shows up as calm decision-making, reduced urgency, clear boundaries, fewer emotional swings. This confidence isn't optimism, it's resilience. Now let's talk about why this matters more than tactics. Tactics change, markets change, advice changes, capacity remains. Capacity allows adaptation. Without capacity, every change feels destabilizing. Now let's talk about how people unknowingly build capacity. They don't do it through affirmation. They don't do it through hype. They do it through consistency. Small exposures, boundaries, systems, reflection. Capacity is built quietly, just like wealth. Now let's talk about the mistake of forcing growth. Forced growth outpaces adaptation. This creates stress, anxiety, and eventual retreat. Sustainable growth expands both income and capacity at the same time. Now let's talk about integration one last time. Integration is letting success settle emotionally. It means not rushing to the next goal, not immediately upgrading life, not constantly pushing. Integration stabilizes gains. Now let's talk about the final realization. People who feel calm with money are not special. They are regulated. They have learned to carry uncertainty, to sit with pressure, to tolerate boredom, to resist urgency. That's emotional capacity, and it's the real engine behind sustainable financial growth. So if growth feels heavy, if success feels stressful, if more money hasn't brought peace, it doesn't mean something is wrong. It means capacity hasn't caught up yet. And that's okay. Capacity can grow. Slowly, intentionally, without force. The goal isn't to eliminate discomfort. It's to expand what you can hold without breaking. Because when emotional capacity matches financial reality, money stops feeling like a threat, stops feeling like a test, stops feeling like a burden. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a tool. And tools work best in steady hands.